Hey folks, welcome back to another video. This is a really quick follow-up to the previous two videos, or the two previous videos. I'll have to look that one up, make sure I got that right, huh? And of course those videos are the one on the Shadow Sidecar project, three-phase motor and VFD install on the mill. I'm going to cover the Sidecar project first. Right up front, I'm going to tell you that the project is essentially scrapped. Well, not essentially, it is scrapped. We're done with that project. You saw in the previous video all that corrosion that was in the swing arm area and the final drive, plus all the other stuff that I found with it. We got it running, of course, and it does still run. Smells like rust. I did clean the fuel tanks out with Evapo-Rust, the auxiliary tank or sub-tank that's in the frame, and the main tank as well, because I needed to get this thing in running condition at least. It could run on its own fuel source instead of like a little bottle or something hanging, because I knew at that point we were scrapping the project, and I wanted to make sure the owner had the best opportunity to sell it as a running machine. About the time that I was working on the swing arm and I was cleaning all that stuff up and doing the tanks and so forth, I decided to kind of split my time and went over to the Sidecar, which, as you recall, was on top of my lift table. I had not yet separated the tub from the frame, so I decided to do that. So I hooked everything up to the hoist again as far as the tub goes, and I started to undo the bolts. They're long carriage bolts that go straight through from the inside of the tub down through the frame, and they're 5/16, 18, about 3.5 inches long. I undid the first one on the rear side of it. There's 2 in the rear and 3 in the front, and water starts pouring out. So when water started pouring out of the frame, I knew at that point that this project needed to be scrapped, and I was thinking to myself, I really wish I had checked this first, like before I even picked it up. Lesson learned. I should have just taken some tools with me and undid those bolts, and if it started pissing water out at the owner's house, I would have said, forget it, scrap this thing. But, you know, hey, life's a learning lesson, right? So we learned something from that. So at that point, I just took all the bolts out and I lifted the Sidecar off the frame. And I was really taking a look at it and just how bad it was. I got the idea at that point, just stick my dangly bit camera up inside there, the borescope, and use the side camera option on that so I could look down the tube of the frame. And that's when I really said, this is an absolute nightmare. It may be savable, but not without a significant amount of time and labor. I'm not going to go into my ideas on how I could have saved it because it's a moot point. You know, who cares at this point? Because like I said, I called the owner and said, this is absolutely not worth doing anything with. He agreed. So net sum, what I ended up doing was, because I was in the middle of doing the tanks, I got those completed. I got the tank reinstalled, then I put the swing arm back on, which I cleaned all that up, all that corrosion in the swing arm and in the final drive, and I got it back into a rolling chassis, put some fuel in the sub-tank. I reused the original fuel pump that I got working. No sense in putting a new fuel pump on, even though I had one. And then ran some new fuel line and a new fuel filter, which was essentially just a laying around fuel filter. I'm not going to waste a good Honda fuel filter on that. So it definitely runs on its own fuel source, if you will. You don't have to hang a bottle from it. And again, that's why I wanted to do that, so the owner could actually sell it as a running machine, which it does run. But being the Sidecar is in such bad shape, you know, again, the project is pretty much scrapped. What he does with it, I don't know. But we're going to be getting it back to him this week. It's in a secure location, and it's not in here. And that's the part that makes me the happiest. It ain't in here, because that thing is just an absolute nightmare. So it's unfortunate that that's the case, but it is what it is. Okay, so that brings us to the round column mill and the VFD install. I've been using this a little bit, and today I actually used it for quite a while at a variety of frequencies, mainly just fooling around. I'm trying to figure out certain ways of fixturing and holding different things, like making shop tools mainly, because, you know, that's gone. So before I get anything else in, if I do have anything else in, I want to be able to do this stuff right now and use the machine. And this thing has been working out fantastically. I guess I can turn the DRO off. It has been working just fantastic. I like this VFD so much that I bought a second one. I got it wrapped in plastic just in case I had a catastrophic failure. I needed to do something. I can swap them out. It's the exact same one. And now they got the damn things on sale. which really pissed me off. I saw that this morning, but it's only like $8 less than I paid for it, so the hell with it. So I'm not going to complain too much, but it absolutely works fantastic. And I wanted to correct a few things that I did say in the original video in regards to the motor not having braking capability. I don't remember where I got that from. I think I read that from a different motor that I was checking into before I bought this one, and that's what it said. This motor most definitely has braking capability. So let me show you what I mean by that. We'll go ahead and turn it on. And we're running pretty low hertz because I was doing something before. So we'll just turn it on with this 19.2 right now. You can see the thing's running pretty slow. We'll go ahead and hit the stop button. I mean, she stops quick. And even if I turn the hertz up, let's go to like 50 hertz, 51, whatever. And we hit the stop. She definitely ramps down quicker than it would if it was just with the old motor, with all that inertia, the pulleys and so forth in the old motor. So it definitely does braking. Now what I found out about it is, and it's setting P14 in the programming. So if we go to program, and let's go up to P14 and go into the data, I have it set at 40 volts. If I set it any higher than 40 volts, it'll go into an error 1. And error 1 is like a protection mode for overcurrent or something like that. You know, it's an overcurrent protection. And so what I ended up doing was I had it originally at 60 volts and it kept doing that error 1. Then I tried it at 50, then it still did it. I did 45 and it did it this morning. So then I changed it to 40 and I used it, like I said, pretty much all day. So it's been fine. So we're going to leave it at 40 volts. I don't know if that's right or not, but it works. The default is 20 volts. P14 brake voltage. The range is 0 to 140 volts, and then 20 volts is the default. So I put it at 40 and it seems to be working fine. So I apologize for that mistake. Like I said, I thought it didn't have braking, but it definitely does. And it's really going to come in handy when you're running it slow and doing some like power tapping, and then you tap that reverse. I mean, it just stops immediately and turns around, goes back the other way, which is going to be real handy. If you're running faster, obviously it takes a little bit longer to spool down, as you saw, but it definitely spools down quicker than it would with the old motor. I was running it at some low frequency this morning, doing some stuff, actually this afternoon as well. And I came over here and I was checking the motor out for heat, and it was barely even warm. And the VFD wasn't warm as far as the case goes, so there's plenty of ventilation. So I'm real happy with the way it worked. So that's one of the things I wanted to correct on this. Okay, the other thing is I changed that setting that I told you I turned off for the low voltage rather, for the alarm. And I'll show you what it does here when you turn this off. We'll go ahead and go into time warp mode. And then we'll speed up because it takes about 30 or 40 seconds for this to react and go dark. Then it shows that error just before it. Okay, so you saw it shot an error 2 as it shut down. Error 2 is under voltage protection. Error 1 is short circuit current overload power module protection. That's what that is. There is obviously no short circuit in it when you're doing braking, but apparently it has an overload issue when you have the voltage up too high, depending on the feedback, I guess, that the motor provides to the VFD. I don't know. I'm not an electrical engineer. My brother is. Perhaps I'll ask him. But that error 2, I'm going to just put up with it because I do want the under voltage protection, just in case that it says, you know, I think it does protect it. And I have it set, the default is 60 volts. And I have it set for 120 volts. So I figured is, if we lost a leg, like if one of the screws came loose where one of the main line voltage comes in for the 240, let's say one of them fell out and it was down to 120 and I tried to use it. Now that would obviously pull this thing down way below 120 volts and would go into protection and probably shut itself off. So that's why I chose 120. It hadn't done it. The only error I had, of course, was error 1. With the braking, and then it just does the error 2 thing when you shut it off, and I think the capacitors bleed down, and then the thing senses it, thinks that it's got a low low current situation. It goes into protection and then shuts off. Doesn't do anything to it, doesn't hurt it. You can turn it right back on if you want. So like I said, I'm real happy with this setup. I mean, this is just absolutely fantastic to be able to dial in speeds on the fly. My feelings on the programming and the documentation are the same though. It pretty much sucks, but the more you get used to it, the more you understand it. So I would say don't let this stop you if you wanted to get a VFD like this from Vevor. It's just one of these things you got to work your way through and kind of experiment. This thing's pretty forgiving. So if you do a setting that it doesn't like, it's not going to either take the setting or it'll go into some sort of error or something like I've been doing with the braking function, and it's pretty forgiving. So yeah, it's fantastic. I'm real happy with it. Yeah, so the Shadow Sidecar bike situation, it still upsets me to this day. I know I shouldn't get upset by it, but it does, because I put a lot of time, blood, sweat, and tears into that project, and it just really, really saddens me. But, you know, you got to know when to call it. And, oh, by the way, I did offer to buy it from the owner. You know, me, I just want to save these things. And I made him an offer that I think he thought was way too low. I think he's going to come to find it was probably about right in the ballpark, but the offer is now hereby rescinded because I'm moving on. The owner knows that, and I'd already told him, I said, again, I'm absolving myself of any liability from this thing because it's just, it's unsafe to drive, it's unsafe to ride, and if you do it, you do it at your own risk. So there you go. We're going to be doing some other filming around here, like as far as making stuff in between any work that comes in. I don't have anything scheduled right now. I have things in the pipeline that might be coming in, but they may be drying up too. I don't really care too much, to be honest with you. I'm kind of tired, but I do need to make some more shop tooling. And one thing I do want to make is I want to make a ER32 collet chuck for the lathe. It's got that D1-4, I think it's called, cam lock. That goes onto the spindle nose of the lathe, and I'm going to order one from Grizzly because they're not too expensive. I already looked it up, and then I'm going to get a piece of big material. I'm not sure if I'm going to probably use 1045. I don't want to use cast iron. It's just too damn messy, and I want to use 4140 because it's a little too hard for what I need on this. So I think 1045 would be get a good hunk of steel for that, either from McMaster or locally, and then we'll go ahead and machine an actual, you know, like I said, ER32 collet chuck for it, because I do have the ER32 collets in Imperial, and I have the collet blocks, you know, the hexagonal and also the square. So it'd be pretty much pretty easy to just order the metric ER32 collets and then use the screw caps that I already have, and then use them on a collet chuck, which is something I've always wanted. Plus some other fixturing I'm working on. Maybe we'll film that. I'm not sure yet. So anyway, stick around. You get to see any of that. Really sad. Anyway, as always, thanks for watching. Don't just repair, restore. Catch you on another video.